Hi, and welcome to Hypothetically Intentional, where we ask the question, what if we set intentions with everything we do? I'm your co-host, Andrew.
And I'm your co-host, Michelle. And I'm pretty pumped that you're here today, because I thought I was solo for another week or two.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be here. We've got some good ones lined up in the chamber, so for the next few weeks, hopefully you'll be able to hear my honey-like voice once again.
Right, of course, yes. Mm-hmm. I've missed your honey-like voice. Self-described honey-like voice.
Yes, of course. Speaking of honey,
would you like to set an intention first?
Well, I just want to give them a little preview.
Got it, okay.
You know where you get honey. Where do you get honey, Mom?
Well, it depends. Sometimes you get it on a farm. Sometimes you get it in a store, like a grocery store. Mm-hmm. Sometimes a market. Mm-hmm. It all depends.
You know what the topic of this episode is supposed to be. You're intentionally sabotaging my segue.
Not sabotaging.
Gosh.
Just letting it be known that there are choices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, I support wherever you get your honey from. But in this case, we're going to be talking a little bit about grocery stores. And, you know, I just started having thoughts about the grocery store. And my intention for today is to learn and or give some, very practical advice.
Oh, cool.
Because the grocery store is a very practical place, I feel like.
It can be.
Yeah, I suppose maybe
not. You can sabotage that practicality pretty quickly if you go in hungry.
Yeah, so that's actually very much what I sort of wanted to talk about.
See, I'm just setting you up.
Yeah.
You think I'm sabotaging.
So before we get started into sort of what made me think of this, I want to ask, how do you go to the grocery store? Because there are some people who go in with a list. They go in very, very with a purpose. They go directly to the places where they need to pick up their things. They pick them up and they go in and out in 15 minutes or whatever. My dad is that way. I am generally that way. But I'm curious, there are other people who go in, maybe they have a list and add some more stuff if they see it and ooh, that looks good. Or maybe they don't go in with a list at all, and they just sort of feel the vibes, take what they want when they're there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how do you go to the grocery store?
It's funny because if I go to Costco, I go in and I just pick what calls to me. Which is horrible because it's huge quantities. I feel like that's the worst place not to have a list.
Would you like a half ton of salt?
Yeah.
Here you go.
Ooh, we need salt. Let me just buy the biggest thing possible. Yeah, but in a grocery store, I'm typically shopping for a recipe. And I hate grocery shopping. It's not my favorite thing, which is funny. Although if I have a new recipe I want to try and I'm super excited about it, which is not normal. I don't super love cooking since I found out I was gluten-free, dairy-free. But lately Dan and I have been trying to do more cooking at home, and I can handle making a casserole. I'm more of a baker, so I make cakes and cookies and cupcakes and those kind of things, which not really fun to do when you're gluten-free, dairy-free. So, but when I go, I have a list of the specific things. Now, that's not to say I don't get sidetracked and put extra in my bag, because I do that sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
I do the same sometimes. If it's mostly if I realize oh, I forgot to put that on my list. I should put that in, or that would go really well with. If I already have raisins at home, I'll pick up peanuts if I see them, because peanuts and raisins go really good together, or vice versa.
Well, and it's funny, sometimes I'll try and go without a list because I think I only have 5 things. And then I'll say the things that I need to get, and then I'll remember that I have 5 things. So if I don't come up with 5 things and I forget one, I have to come up with the other one before I leave. Mm-hmm. That never works well for me. I never can remember it's always if I go in with even 3 things.
I know, 3
5,
things.
7, it doesn't matter. It's what is wrong with my memory? I have the memory of a fly. I don't know, do flies have short memories?
I don't know.
They think they do.
Goldfish.
Yeah, goldfish, that's the saying.
Prototype, yeah.
It's funny. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's 5 things. How can you not remember 5 things? Mm-hmm. But so often, I'm I don't need a list. It's just, yeah.
Well, yeah, like grocery stores sort of like inundate you with a lot of visual information about all the different things that are around you. So even if you can remember it on the way over there and when you're at home, once you get to the grocery store, I feel like that's almost like part of the intention of the grocery store is to put a bunch of bright and colorful things at you that you might want to buy. I know like a lot of them are intentionally set up so that like they intentionally, whenever you go into a grocery store, the produce is in the front. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the essentials are in the back. And then a lot of the like tempting snacky stuff is between the back where all the essentials are and the cash registers, the aisles and checkouts. So when you go in, you automatically have this positive association with the grocery store because of all the nice, pretty fruits and vegetables. It looks healthy. It makes you feel good. Whether or not you get any. And you get to walk through all of that to go pick up your milk and your eggs and your bread. And then on your way out, you have to go through most of the time, unless you're actively avoiding it. You usually will go through chips and snacks and cookies and all of that. And that's like made to entice you that way. It's very intentionally done.
Well, and that stuff is always right through the checkout line, too.
Yeah.
So even if you try and avoid it, it's a setup for parents, I'll tell you that. Parents with young kids are screwed. Because if your kids are drawn to that stuff, there will be a fit. Maybe not a fit, but there will be a request, very likely, as you're leaving the grocery store. Yeah. I understand that is intentional, that they do that on purpose. Yeah. It's a good lesson, to teach your kids. Like today it's a yes, tomorrow it might be a no. Don't set yourself up for expecting this every time. Or I don't know, there's just a lot of different ways you can do it. But I remember you guys were actually pretty good about that. You never really begged for things.
No, I know sometimes we would get a pack of Pokemon cards if we came with, and that was our sort of motivation for going to the grocery store. But no, we never really. I don't really remember getting candy a whole lot.
You never really asked for that. That kind of wasn't your thing. But you also weren't like kids who asked for a lot of things in stores. I feel like I was as a kid. I feel like I was because it was like mom. We went shopping with mom a lot. And it was like, you always see something you want. Hey, can I get this? Can I get that? And when you got old enough, it was like, well, save your money and get it. And sometimes it was like, yeah, I'm feeling generous today. Let's get that. Yeah, but it's definitely strategically placed throughout the grocery store, without a doubt. End caps have different things on them, right, than the center aisles. Yeah.
Yeah, and that sort of goes into sort of what prompted this idea for the episode for me is I was going through the grocery store, and normally I am very frugal at the grocery store. I'll always go for the generic brand if I can, and I usually don't make impulse buys. I'll just get what I need. But I was going through the bread aisle, and just for some reason, I don't know exactly what it was, but I picked up this sort of fancier oat bread or something, and it was just a little bit nicer than the usual stuff I get. And just a little bit more expensive. And I'm like, you know what? I feel like getting this. And I usually don't get the things that I feel like getting at the grocery store because I usually just go for my list and then that's it. But I want to try it. And I'm really glad that I did because it's really good. I really like it. And I think it's just one of those little ways where you can show yourself that you're worth nice things every now and then. Yeah. And I never really I had heard that sentiment before, but I hadn't really understood it before because that just wasn't something I was really worried about for myself. But actually going through and getting the nice bread made me feel good. Later I'm oh yeah, I got that for myself. And the cost increase is trivial. It was 50 cents more for the loaf of bread that's gonna last me a week or whatever. Who cares? But it's actually, it sort of made me realize that you can show yourself that you value yourself in a lot of different ways. And it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be like major. Just like getting the nice bread is a really good way to do that, I think. At least it was for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And even the way you said it, you said something like, I decided I was going to do it because I deserve that every now and again, or something like that, right? Every once in a while. Does that sound like right as to what you said?
Yeah, I think I hadn't done it, like I don't do it.
Don't do it very often, and you deserve that every now and again, or something like that. And I'm like, and I would say you deserve that every day. You just get to choose when and what makes you feel valued, when and what makes you feel worthy, when and what makes you feel like you're pouring into yourself. You deserve that every day. But it might not always be, to your point, it might not always be that loaf of bread that makes you feel that way. Because at some point, that loaf of bread, if you do it all the time, then it feels mundane.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel special.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's funny. I love that it was a loaf of bread that kind of made a light bulb go on and give you like that, hey, I can do kind things for myself. And they actually do have an effect within me, like your mental state, your emotional state, your physical state, even if it's nourishing food, right? Sometimes I'm the human that's like, when I want to treat myself, it's not nourishing food. It's like the stuff that, there might be a hint of dairy in here, I'm going to do it anyway, I shouldn't have done that. Which I think I'm treating myself, and I'm actually self-sabotaging, which, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then, I'm not saying it's all like that every time, but really to be mindful and aware, like, is this actually something that I'm doing for myself, or is this something I'm doing that might feel good in the now or taste good in the now, but is actually ultimately to my demise?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I feel similarly about like things I do, like a lot of like self-care like activities that people think of, like what do you think of when you think of a self-care activity?
Well, I have like a self-care toolkit that I use and that I talk about in my classes. So for me, I keep it handy, and self-care for me depends on the thing, but I have a whole list. Like if I'm like agitated and really pissed off, I probably need to move or like crank some music and primal scream or sing at the top of my lungs and dance just to move the energy. But if I feel like depleted, like maybe a walk in nature, maybe a shower with essential oils, maybe Zentangle is a great practice for me. I have like a list of people that I know I can count on for various things depending on my state, right? And to really know what works for you and what doesn't. So I kind of have a comprehensive, and it's ever growing, right? And I don't just say watch a movie. It's like, which movies make me feel good? Because if I say watch a movie, I'm probably going to pick one. If I'm really in a funk, I'm probably going to pick one that's just going to escalate that funk versus like actually taking me out of it. How about you?
Well, so where I was going with that was like, for a lot of people, like most people when they think of like self-care activities, and apparently you are an exception here, but most people would think of like, relax, like watch some TV, maybe play some games, or like something low energy. And while that there are definitely times where that is great. For me, a lot of the times that does not make me feel good. Like depending on what the stressor is, or like why I feel the need to take care of myself, like particularly like have a self-care day or whatever. Usually, I would say usually, more often than not, for me, doing something that is relaxing or like something that is where you're not, for me, it feels better to like be working towards something than it does to be like taking a day off.
Yeah, well, and especially like and that's why I always say self-care, it depends. Like if you're in a state of overwhelm and feeling like you're so far behind you'll never catch up, sitting stagnant isn't going to make that feel better.
Right.
But taking even one step, picking one thing to do, one step that leads you to out of that overwhelm state, or out of like the to-do list that's a mile long swirling in your head, that's way more self-care and self-love. And maybe not for everyone. Maybe sometimes you need to regroup and recharge because you're depleted, and that's why you're in overwhelm. And that it really is personal to you. And it depends, like for me, every single, like whatever is off within me I have to look at that first, and I have to be able to do that with awareness to discern and determine what is actually going to work for me in self-care. And if I'm really in it, I'm not always good at seeing that, which is why my self-care toolkit is helpful, because if I'm in chaos, that makes my brain and my being not really operate at its full capacity in a good way for myself. I have a list that I can turn to, and I know I can phone a friend, so to speak, right? And be like, hey, I'm too far in it. I can't do this for myself. I just need some guidance. Can you hold space for me? Do you have the capacity to hold space for me? Or are you in this too? You know, and that's the thing I think we forget to talk about with people. It's like, if you're really in a funk, our tendency is to call someone up and go, verbal vomit, like, you know, just go right into it. And I try really hard to pause and ask first.
That is not my tendency.
Yeah.
But
I'm just saying, if you're going to reach out,
Yeah.
typically you go right into it. You don't like pause and ask if they have capacity. But yes, I understand. You obviously, not obviously, that's not what I even meant to say there. That was like a weird hiccup in my brain. It feels to me like you would have a bigger tendency to go inward and not reach out. And then if you did reach out, you would be a little more a slower entry. And it might even be hard for you to get to open up to that point. Mm-hmm. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. So I guess to bring it back around to our intention, this is sort of our takeaway here. I would say like whether it's at the grocery store or how you are choosing to take care of yourself, find some way that works for you to like show yourself that you are worthy, or you are loved by yourself. And that's advice that I had heard before, and I don't think I understood it until I went and did it, sort of by accident.
Cool. That was a fun little grocery store. That was my favorite grocery store visit, quote unquote visit, in a while. To just think about. Normally when I think about a grocery store, I'm like, oh, that's a to-do list. You know, I don't think of a grocery store as like and you know what? Here's the thing. Like, maybe I should think about it as like, I get to nurture myself and my family and like actually like take care of myself. So thank you for that perspective shift. I'm going to see where that goes for me, because in the now, I just think of it as a chore. And I could definitely have a different perspective that would bring me way more joy when I was there, or when I am there. All right, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you, Andrew. I loved it. We never even went to honey. I thought you were going to talk about honey.
No, I wasn't actually going to talk about it.
Store.
Honey, it was a loose segue.
I got it. No, it was cool.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So you can find us on social media. We actually have a hypothetically intentional Facebook and Instagram page now. You can also still find us at all the old links, and we love to hear from you. Let us know if there's anything that we could support you with, or that you would like us to talk about in this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Mom is a rock star and got us on the Apple Podcasts finally.
Oh, that took forever.
Way too long. It took forever. They weren't. But you figured it out.
I figured it out. Nice it was a user error on my part, I think.
Well, I also tried to do it, so it was a user error on both our parts.
×2.
But yeah.
So thanks for joining us this week. We hope to see you again. Well, we don't get to see you, but someday maybe we get to see you. If you post your picture on our social media, we would get to see you. Bye. Be you every day.
Bye.